Cartels operate with the budget of a Fortune 500 company, but with the legal volatility of a failed state. If you think the profit margin is 100%, you're missing the cost of bribes, transport, security, and losses. Let's look at the profit and loss of the world's most dangerous industry. In any hostile market, physical security is not an occasional emergency. It is a permanent payroll obligation. A cartel's military wing operates as a highly specialized labor force, with fixed monthly costs required to protect inventory, secure territory, and enforce contracts. Internal accounting logs reveal that these organizations run disciplined, corporate-style payroll systems. A standard enforcer earns between $5,000 and $10,000 every month, a rate designed to outcompete legitimate local wages and guarantee absolute loyalty. On the transport side, records show driving crews receiving $1,200 a month, supplemented by $300 danger bonuses for high-risk night runs through contested territory. This security infrastructure extends directly to physical assets. Operating a single secure safehouse in a transit hub like Buenaventura costs approximately $8,000 a month in rent, with an additional $2,000 dedicated to surveillance cameras and encrypted communication systems to evade detection. To hide these multi-million-dollar outlays from auditors, cartel accountants log them under generic line items like personnel allowances or operational overhead. These are not random, ad hoc payouts. They are recurring, non-negotiable operating expenses that immediately drain gross revenues before a single shipment ever reaches its destination. Security is a massive permanent tax on the balance sheet, paid month after month just to keep the business alive. Maintaining this defense requires a sprawling physical footprint that behaves like a corporate asset network. A mid-sized cartel manages around 120 safehouses and fortified rural compounds. Constructing a basic urban safehouse demands an upfront capital expenditure of $30,000 to $50,000, while a fortified stronghold with reinforced concrete walls and high watchtowers exceeds $200,000. When aggregated, the annual depreciation, rent, and utility upkeep for these properties drains $10 to $15 million from cash reserves. Within these facilities, operational security relies on private communication networks. Cartels deploy military-grade satellite phones, secure radio towers, and encrypted applications. This hardware is paired with localized lookout networks, known as halcones, who monitor troop movements around the clock. Then there is the physical arsenal. Mexican authorities seized approximately 18,000 firearms over a 12-month period, 80% of which originated in the United States. At an estimated black market acquisition cost of $500 per weapon, this seized stockpile represents a write-off of $9 million. But this is only a fraction of active inventory. To maintain a functional arsenal of up to 135,000 weapons across the organization, cartels spend $60 to $70 million annually on procurement, with ammunition and parts adding another 10 to 15% to the ledger. This infrastructure is a standing cost, essential to keep the corridors clear. The supply chain starts in the fields of Nariño, Colombia, where processing labs convert harvested coca leaves into cocaine base. This initial production leg incurs a baseline cost of $1,200 to $1,500 per kilogram. From Nariño, the product travels overland to Pacific ports like Buenaventura. This transit leg adds $300 to $500 per kilogram to the ledger for convoy security, fuel, and driver pay. At the coast, staging and temporary warehouse storage add another $200 per kilogram before the maritime journey begins. The sea leg represents the next major cost center. Go-fast boats and semi-submersibles navigate the Pacific toward transshipment hubs in Panama or Guatemala, adding $400 to $600 per kilogram in fuel, navigation technology, and crew wages. Finally, the shipments are repackaged and concealed inside commercial container ships bound for U.S. East Coast ports like New York. This entry leg requires an additional $1,000 per kilogram. completing a logistics chain where transport costs accumulate at every coordinate. Moving physical inventory through international corridors requires continuous, expensive modification. Smuggling demands, custom concealment engineering, frequent product repacking at regional transit hubs, and extensive route redundancy to hedge against logistics failures. Every step of the transit adds structural overhead. Hiding inventory inside commercial cargo requires specialized industrial labor and materials, while running parallel backup routes multiplies transport outlays. Alongside physical concealment, corruption functions as a standard, recurring tariff on the balance sheet. Payments to customs inspectors, port authorities, and checkpoint commanders function as routine operating expenses. At key border crossings, cartels pay fixed passage fees of $15,000 per shipment to bypass security checks. Cartel accountants treat these payoffs as predictable operating costs, identical to legitimate port taxes. This structural overhead ensures that simply moving product through hostile territory remains a massive financial burden, draining profit margins before a single shipment is ever intercepted. In the illicit supply chain, there is a vast gulf between shipments sent and shipments sold. Accounting models categorize seizures, theft, spoilage, and turf war attrition as raw inventory depreciation. While domestic interdictions remove an average of 2 to 3% of inbound cargo, transit corridors show far more destructive rates. In high-risk sectors, attrition consistently climbs to 20 or 30%. At these choke points, rival violence acts as catastrophic property damage, vaporizing millions of dollars in product and vehicles. Spoilage from moisture-compromised packaging and internal theft further deplete the margins. This creates a devastating asymmetric risk. Because transport, bribes, and security are paid upfront, a single maritime bust or convoy ambush writes off months of upstream labor and capital investment. The operation must absorb a total financial write-off. In this business, a lost shipment is a sunk cost that cannot be recovered, insured, or claimed on any balance sheet. Even when a shipment successfully reaches retail markets, the resulting mountain of physical cash is practically useless to a cartel. Street sales generate billions of low-denomination banknotes that cannot legally enter the global banking system. To convert paper cash into usable assets, cartel accountants rely on highly specialized money laundering networks. These facilitators charge steep fees, typically taking 2 to 5% of the transaction value. To obscure the audit trail, they employ trade-based laundering, such as over-invoicing physical goods like coffee, alongside cash couriers, shell corporations, and cryptocurrency mixers. Financial crime economists estimate that these layering steps and the associated capital storage risks consume 10 to 20% of a cartel's gross revenue. Physical cash also presents a severe logistics burden. Stockpiles of unlaundered bills hidden in safe houses are highly vulnerable to environmental decay, internal theft, and sudden state confiscation, turning untransformed revenue into an active financial liability. The billions of dollars flowing through laundering networks do not sit idle in offshore accounts. They restructure local economies. When cartel capital enters agricultural regions, it inflates land costs, pricing legitimate farmers out. World Bank research shows that the resulting financial regulations often trigger credit shocks, forcing local banks to restrict lending and starving honest businesses of capital. This economic disruption directly fuels a humanitarian crisis. Professor David Shirk's research indicates that the violence funded by these concealed assets drives forced displacement rates of 5 to 10% in contested zones. As families flee, municipal tax bases collapse, and public institutions lose the capacity to govern. The result is a distorted, unstable environment where illicit wealth hollows out the foundation of legitimate society. Today, this massive empire remains a financial illusion, viable only because illegality artificially inflates its margins. It is an unsustainable enterprise built entirely on risk. Which shadow industry should we audit next? Subscribe for more business breakdowns.